It's timely, it's insightful, it's motivating, it's empowering. It's Time with Fred, your inspirational broadcast with host Fred Gaddy.
Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Time with Fred podcast. This is season 4. I have with me a very special guest today who joins me all the way from Australia in the person of Mary Henderson. She's here to talk about purpose and some of her own life experiences and how that's shaped who she is today. And I'm pleased to have her here. You're in for a treat. So buckle up and let's get this party started. Mary, thank you so much for coming on the Time with Fred podcast today.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation.
The pleasure is all mine. And just before we started, Mary reminded me that she's actually a day ahead. So she's in the future. She's seeing the future, and she's going to bring us in, right? So there's things that she's experienced that we haven't experienced here, depending on what part of the world you're listening in from. So that's a cool advantage there. So Mary, before we get started, let me have you introduce yourself this time. Typically, I introduce my guests, and I realize I don't always do a great job as I would. But who's Mary? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you said, I'm from Melbourne in Australia. I have 2 boys. One is 13 today and the other one is 11. I have been very fortunate, Fred, to turn the things that I can do with ease and grace into my vocation, and that is to helping industry experts to systemize, digitalize, and commercialize their knowledge, wisdom, and skill set into a brand and also a business, typically an online coaching business or a consulting business, and also position themselves as an authority. I passionately believe that wisdom is the currency. It's something that nobody can take away from us. And it's a gold mine that so many people are sitting on and absolutely doing nothing with it. And that is my absolute passion, is to get that message out there and to get people to understand that purpose is not outside of us. Purpose actually lives within our genius, our natural gifts, our natural talents, our wisdom, our knowledge, our skill set. And within therein lies purpose. And that's essentially a little bit about me.
That's a great intro there, and you touched on purpose, Mary, as one of I guess the important topics, right? That I think we all need to find, and it's one that's been thrown around quite a bit. How would you describe purpose?
That took me a long time to consolidate into my version of what I think purpose is, and I think that I have my description of purpose arrived after I myself found it, if that makes sense. And that was through lots of mentoring and really understanding this notion around who am I as a physical body, who am I as a spiritual body, who am I as a soul. And what I recognized through my journey is that when I started to unpack what is it that I can do with ease and grace, I started to see a lot of inventory, what I now call my internal inventory, that is everything that I have been given by God, higher power, source, whatever you want to call it. That's what I've been granted as my inventory. The question that most of us don't ask, including myself at that time, was, hang on a minute, I have all of this inventory. What am I actually going to do with it? I can do all of these things with such ease and grace. What could happen if I consolidate all of this genius, these gifts, these talents, these skills, and the wisdom on top of that? What could possibly happen if I consolidate this? And lo and behold, I could solve a complex problem in the world. And I suddenly recognize that's my purpose. So I've been given all of this inventory, and it's inside of me. It's not outside of me. I don't have to go and chase it. I don't have to buy it. I don't have to find it. It's already in me. It exists. It's just that I have to do something with it. And so for me, purpose already exists in every single individual if you look at all of these beautiful qualities about ourselves as our internal inventory.
Yeah, I love that. And for a lot of people who I've interacted with, they their discovery of purpose didn't it wasn't something they knew. Well, some of course knew it from the beginning, but for a lot of them, it was discovered out of or born out of some type of adversity or discovered us through the journey on which they're on. And oftentimes it's disguised. It comes out of hardship, even for some of the people that I've interacted with. To what extent is this true, right? Because it's for some, they were like, well, do I have to go through this life journey or experience to truly discover my purpose, right? It should be something that comes readily. Why am I having to go through this painful experience to discover who I am or what I was created to do? Can you help us unpack that a little bit?
Yeah,
And maybe even in your
absolutely.
case, right? What led you to
Yes.
discover your own purpose?
I think, Fred, the reason why most of us don't find our purpose is because most of us are living our false self.
Mm,
We've created a facade of how we need to act in the world, of how we need to be in certain circles, how we need to be in our job, how we need to be with our parents, how we need to be with our partners, how we need to be with our children, how we need to be in social circles. So just think about the complexity and the energy that consumes out of individuals. We're trying to always fit in. So that is not the true self, because the true self doesn't fit in. The true self is unapologetically themselves. It's not about saying things that put people off or to make you noticeable or be seen and be heard because you want the attention on you. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about understanding that the core true self is made up of all of that inventory that I just spoke of, but also there's one layer to get to that place, and that is that we have to have desire and will to get to our true self. That very important two words, because we use that so loosely. Oh yes, I do have the will to find my true self. I do have the will to find my purpose. Well, you don't have the will and the desire, because all you need to do is look at where your attention goes each and every day. For example, if somebody says something to me and it's not the truth, am I going to be politically correct just to keep the peace? That's not me being my true self. That's me being my false self. I'm pleasing that person to just create harmony. But what about if I could turn around and say, no, but I disagree with you. That is not the truth. This is the truth. And even though I'm totally uncomfortable and inside of my body is just, it's messing me up inside because I can't believe that I'm actually going against what this person's saying, but yet it is my truth, then I have the desire to be my true self. So where we get lost in purpose is that we're trying to find purpose from the standpoint of being our false self, not our true self. And they are two very, 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 very different feelings. They're two different outcomes. You operate from a completely different standpoint when you show up as your true self versus your false self. And I think that what people are, and this is why I think a lot of people look for purpose outside of themselves, because the false self is all about looking for inspiration and answers and solutions outside of themselves. What I'm saying here is the solutions, the answers, the inspiration, and the aspiration is inside yourself, but it resides with the true self, not the false self. The false self will always, always, always lead us to an uphill battle, always.
yeah, that's such a powerful point there, and I think this creates some. You talk about the complexity, which I couldn't agree with you more on that, but there's also this conflict, right? Because there's this desire to please or to fit in whoever's mold it is, whether it's your parent or boss or whoever, right? And so uh, there is almost a cost for not fitting in because you're out of fear you may
Yes.
be ostracized by society, or you may be labeled as maybe a recalcitrant, or maybe you know um, just obstinate or unwilling, right? And then we know deep down that this is really where we're supposed to be, but in order to please or to pacify someone, we get drawn into all sorts of places and we end up living the lives of other people. One of the messages that I shared this year as part of setting goals is ensuring that the decisions and the goals we set are based on our, own desires and not necessarily because you're not losing weight just because someone is wanting to do that. Not that there's anything
Yes.
wrong with it, right? But this desire to want to fit into someone else's mold creates this conflict for us, right? And sometimes it pushes us in all sorts of places and creates problems down the road, right? How do we get to that point where we're comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? I'm not going to fit into this mold. This is my true self, like you rightly mentioned, and I'm okay to pay that price because at the end of the day, this is the path. This is who I believe I'm created to be. You may feel uncomfortable. It may offend you, but this is it, and I'm willing to pay that price. How do we get to that point?
Well, I think you just answered that question, Fred. It's being comfortable, being uncomfortable. That's actually the starting point, because what happens is that when you're in your false self, what we tend to do is we don't want to feel the pain. That's the whole idea of the false self, which is why so many people have addictions, because addictions just keeps you down here, not up here. So we're always not just living a false life, but also creating situations and events that also support that falseness. But with that falseness also lives discomfort and pain. Okay, it always leads to discomfort and pain. And so when we can actually get comfortable being uncomfortable, that means that we have to develop self-awareness. That's what we need to do. We need to take a step back, and we have to have the will to actually see a situation, an event that's causing pain in our life. And we need to say self-inquiry, why does this always happen in my life? Why does these situations or these events or these people always come into my life? Why am I always experiencing these emotions and feelings? Why am I always dissatisfied? Why do I always never have money? Why do I always attract the wrong relationships? So we have to go into that why, that self-inquiry, and develop a muscle around self-awareness. We have to have that level of awareness that something triggers us where we actually stop and we say, I'm not feeling good about this. This doesn't feel right. I'm always attracting this. I'm feeling pain in my body, in my heart, in my soul. I don't like this. And the moment we can actually stop and we can ask those questions, that's the journey. The journey begins there. And then the next part of that journey is, am I willing to sit with this discomfort and this pain and this feeling of frustration or sadness or anger or rage, hate, even whatever it is? The truth is the truth, and it does set you free. If I'm angry with that man that I attracted because he cheated on me, I need to be angry with that man because he cheated on me. The truth is, I'm angry with that man. I'm angry that I followed this diet and I've lost 10 pounds, but now I've put 20 pounds on. I'm angry with that diet. And it's not about blaming the diet or blaming the person. It's about saying the truth. Because if you're angry with something outside of you, you have to declare that I'm angry with that thing that I believe has created this pain. And see, this is the journey of elimination. It starts with the self-inquiry, self-awareness, stepping into the pain and sitting in the pain. It could be an hour, a minute, 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, a year. And everyone's different. Because once we start allowing ourselves to feel that pain, then we start to eliminate the pain slowly until eventually that pain goes. Therefore, the experience then also recreates itself into what we want it to be. So for me, being comfortable, being uncomfortable is sublime. It's the most precious gift that we can give ourselves. And yet everyone wants to push it down through some type of addiction or fear or lack of self-love or a shame. There's punishment, so many different reasons that we push it down, because humans don't like to experience pain.
Yeah, and that pain point there, Mary, I think is really why we're having this discussion here, right? Because we want the path of least resistance. We want the easy way out. We just want to have it, eat our cake and have it. We don't want any opposition, and so we embark on whatever endeavor it is, right, on this discovery
Yes.
in order to into finding out who we want to be. And then we do the self-inquiry, we do the self-awareness, and we get into that pain point, as I like to call it. And then everything just, stops there because we feel like, well, if I'm experiencing pain, this must not be it. And so I'm going to default to what I'm used to, right? Because it has to be easy. I don't want to pay the price. I don't want to deal with all the unnecessary attention and all that comes with it. And so many of us get stuck because we can't seem to move past that pain, which I think is a huge problem, right? That's why people are addicted to all sorts of things, because they want to numb
Yes.
that pain. They don't want to deal with it.
Yes.
They want to numb it. So they'll do anything and everything to numb that pain. Some people will gloss over it. They don't want to go back and unpack it, or peel the onion, just to stare at themselves, right? To deal with the real problem. And so we keep covering up and covering up and covering up, and we end up creating this false sense of whatever it is, without really going down deep into addressing the root cause of the problem. Does that make sense?
Well, I think also we need to add another layer to that. And I think that people are addicted to denial. I mean, and anyone that's been on the road less traveled understands that all of us, every one of us, including myself, you as well, most likely, Fred, that we all start with denial, and we keep going back to denial over and over again until one day something happens and you can't deny it anymore. You've cracked. And that's the moment that starts the journey. Doesn't mean you have to go to that point of being broken. Absolutely not. But who teaches us, even at the school system, that, hey, let's have a lesson today on emotions and feelings, and let's really understand how to tap into feeling good and feeling angry or sad, and let's unpack all of that, so that when Johnny and Mary are at school and they're feeling sad, that Mary is allowed to feel sad, but so is Johnny. Johnny's allowed to feel sad and express that, and express how sadness makes Johnny feel, rather than saying, Johnny, you're a boy. Boys don't cry, and boys don't have feelings. So, Johnny, you need to grow up, and you need to just brush it off and get back out on the field and be a strong boy. So we're not taught how to we don't understand the language of feelings. What we're taught is how to compete, how to divide, how to win, how to lose. You're good, you're bad, you're black, you're white, you're rich, you're poor. So there's all this division. That's what the school system teaches us. The school system doesn't teach us how to rise, and so I think that denial is a big part of our structure, the system that we live in, and we need to be smart enough to go beyond that.
Yeah, such a powerful point there. Emotional intelligence, which could be a whole different topic here, though we could
Yes.
talk about it all day. But it is so huge, right? The emotions here, and you struck a chord, because I think one of the podcast interviews that I did at the very early on was to bring a group of men together to talk about emotions, and that's exactly what you're talking about, where men are expected to not to be in touch with those emotions, right? And so we shield it, we don't talk about it, we
Yes.
we hide from it until it gets to the point where we can't anymore, until someone just decides to act crazy and destroy their lives, destroy their families, because they can't take it
Yes.
anymore, right? And I think there is a huge responsibility too. I think, Mary, that society, or that we need to have, really, and being more empathetic and understanding if someone is showing or expressing their emotions, that we don't downplay it, right? We want to provide that psychological safety, right, for them to talk about the emotions and deal with it, versus downplaying it, and then it comes out in so many different forms, and it ends up destroying not only themselves but society as a whole. So I would dare say that we also bear responsibility, really, as members of the society, in which we live. But Mary, let me take you back a little bit. You have a very powerful story about your own transformational journey, which kind of led you to discover your purpose when you're in the corporate world and doing so well until you had your son, and then something happened. I'll let you share that story because I think that's a very powerful one there that we can learn something from for sure.
And the story is just so aligned with what we're talking about, because it'll give context to the people that are listening to this. You know, I had a very successful career in the IT industry, and then I actually started my own software company, which I had for 7 years. Multi-seven-figure business. I had a whole infrastructure, office, people, you name it. And then I gave birth to my second son. 3 hours after he was born, I reach out, I get my lip balm out of my purse, and my business card fell on the bed. So I lift this business card and I'm staring at it, Fred. It was just the most weirdest thing that anyone could even do. I'm looking at this business card and I'm looking at the title, the label on the business card, Mary Henderson, Managing Director. And I'm thinking to myself, my whole life has been a series of labels. Like, this business card is defining who I am and how I show up in the world, but it's also validating my self-worth. This little card is controlling my life and my destiny. And I just had this massive wake-up call in that moment. But it wasn't just the wake-up call of the business card. I also recognized that, hang on a minute, I don't even want this business that I've created. This is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is absolutely not my purpose. In fact, the reason I had to own up the truth here, the reason why I have this business is because I was looking for validation from my parents. I wanted my parents to tap me on the shoulder and say, "Oh, we're so proud of you, Mary, even though you didn't finish your degree." Can you believe that? So I knew leaving the hospital that I would resign from my own company. I made the decision in that moment that I've got to get out of here and actually go and find what I'm meant to be doing for the rest of my life. So I leave the hospital. 2 weeks later, I'm having a meeting with my accountants, and they're like, "Oh, what a great year you've had. Amazing. Let's talk about the next 12 months. And I'm like, sorry, just to let you guys know, I'm actually resigning from my own company. And they were like, "You're just so hormonal at the moment." Everyone's laughing. And I'm looking at everybody like I was out of my body. And I'm looking at everyone. I'm like, "No, I'm actually resigning from my own company. Like, I'm leaving." And they were saying, "You can't just leave your company because it's a company and you've got people and clients." I said, "I know, I'm leaving my company. Like, I'm just telling you that I don't want to be here anymore." And here's my accountant saying, "But like, it's not like it's a $2 company. Like, it's a serious infrastructure. You can't just walk away from it." And I said, "Well, you're my accountant. You go and find another company that will want to buy it or we can merge with, because I need to be free. Like, I literally need to be free." Thankfully, we merged with another company, and January the 1st, 2012, Fred, I went on a 12-month sabbatical. For the first time in my adult life, I did not have a job. I did not have a title. I did not have an office. I didn't have to go anywhere. And on that first day, I walked to my computer and I Googled, "How do I change my life?" And I found a TED Talk. It was a professor in philosophy giving this amazing talk about love, self-love. And I knew that that was going to be my mentor. I reached out to him. He became my mentor for 12 months. I had another mentor who was an expert in the emotional body. At the same time, I did a 12-month course at Quantum University on quantum medicine to actually understand, who actually am I as a physical being, as a spiritual being, as a soul? Like, what does all this mean? What does all this spiritual talk actually mean? And my mentor, the professor in philosophy, really helped me unfold a lot of that. And what happened is that throughout that 12-month process, I started to unpack my natural gifts, my natural talents, my passions, things that I can do with ease and grace. And I started to self-realize that, oh, wow, everything was divinely orchestrated for me to arrive at this moment, to be able to look back, take all the things that I really, really love doing, like I just naturally can do. And I want to merge all of that. Let me see what happens out of all of this. And in 2012, I actually realized that what I'm doing today was what I was always meant to do. It's just that I wasn't meant to do it before then, because I needed all of that life experience in order to bring me to where I am today. And then it took me 3 years to actually develop what I do now. Like, I really designed a system, frameworks. Like, I brought my genius into the mix because I wanted to create outcomes and results for people. And anyway, so this is what I do today. But also in the last, I don't know, 12, 10 years, I've dedicated a lot of my energy in my life to self-actualizing my true potential, understanding what spirituality means to me, and going as deep as I possibly can. And I actually incorporate all of that into my coaching now, with my clients. So, whilst they're implementing and creating businesses and brands, they're also working on how to self-actualize and embody that version that they've just created. Their natural state of being needs to be fully embodied, because that's who they truly are. And it's amazing how people become what they're truly meant to be, but they don't embody it. Two different things. And so now I work in that I incorporate the embodiment in my work, because for me, it all starts at the soul level, not the physical level. And when you can work at a soul level, you actually it's magical just to see transformation actually happening in front of your eyes. So the journey of my story is not something that was just over 3 self-help books or, over 3 months of listening to audiobooks. It's been a journey for many, many, many years. But till 2012, till today, that's 11 years later, I'm still on the hero's journey. Like, it still has not ended. If anything, it's becoming even more powerful and more deeper and more wider and more wisdom. And I honor it, Fred. Like, I really cherish it, and I nurture that aspect of myself because it's that important to me.
That's such a powerful story, Mary. For a lot of people who get to that point, they get there because they're either forced to get there, or they just, you know, arrive at their wits' end. There's really no option for them, and they're like, well, if this is not working, then maybe I'm going to be forced to think about this way. In your case, though, things were going well, your business was thriving, but you realize that in spite of all the successes that you're enjoying, something had to give, right? And it's such a powerful thing. I was listening to this news. This is a story I've shared more than once about this man who had lost his job or had been fired from his job, and he was being interviewed, and he was talking about how his whole life, was not worth living anymore. He felt like committing suicide because he had lost his job. And I was driving at the time, and I was almost talking back and saying, no, this does not define you. The fact that you've lost your job does not define you, because the moment you attach who you are to what you do as a job, if that job's not there, your life's worthless, right? It's got to be more than the job. It's got to be more than the looks. It's got to be more than the opinions of people. You got to have, I don't know how to explain it, but I'm sure you know what I mean here. But you've got to know innately, right, that this is who you are. And once you know that, nothing can take that away from you. Losing the job can't take that away. People's opinions can't take that away from you, right? And I think you got there, that self-actualization point, and you're still discovering that. But I think it was a very powerful place to be. What do you say to people, Mary, who may have not gotten, or may have not reached that pain point yet? They're still in that self-awareness, that self-discovery. Things may be going well, but still need to find out who they truly are, right? It's easier when you hit that roadblock, when you go through pain, because then it forces you to think otherwise, right? But when it's all nice and cozy and great, how do you find that? Like you did.
Yes. Well, I think that this is why we need to learn somehow to create choice around being our true self, not doing, but being our true self. Okay. And also developing our true self. So there's two things. We need to choose to be our true self, but we also need to develop being our true self. Okay. And I think that this should be everyone's goal, regardless whether you're, in the peak of your career or you're down in the gutter. It doesn't matter where you are in the hierarchy. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what race, color, nothing matters. That's all irrelevant. What matters is that the choice to develop our true self is fundamental and vital and critical. And the reason I say that, Fred, is it doesn't just impact us.
Mm-hmm.
It impacts the people in our life. Because when we develop our true self, that there's two things that happen with our true self. One is that everyone gets to experience our true self, but we get to choose who we share our true self with. Two different things. So I need to be my true self everywhere with everyone, but I choose who I share my true self with. Because when I'm sharing my heart and my soul with you right now, Fred, you're tapping into an energy field and I'm opening up, and we're exchanging openly, willingly, with absolute love. There's no agenda. It's absolute pure love. And when we can be our true, and we can't do that if we're not truly our true self. You cannot, because when you come from the standpoint of a facade, there's always an agenda. Always, what's in it for me? Always, even if you don't admit that, there's always an agenda, because that's what the fake self wants. It's all about survival. It's all about competition. It's all about what's in it for me. The false self doesn't rely on just pure me being me, coming from a space of pure love, just lovingly. Everything I do is loving. Everyone that comes into my life is loving. And anyone that is not loving is not in my life. Therefore, I don't share my true self with those people because I don't need to. So our goal should always be not to get to the point of self-destruction or self-sabotage. Our goal should be to understand, what do I look like as my true self? What does that feel like? What does it look like as a vision? What would I be if I could have anything? If money wasn't an issue, what would I look like? So we need to start asking the depth and breadth of those type of questions. And the ultimate goal is to be the true self, because we live in this society that's made up of systems that are keeping us enclosed and in a prison, that there's no freedom in being your false self, because all you're doing is continuing to feed a system that doesn't give you any positive outcome. It's not giving you the freedom, even though you may think you're free. It's not giving you the freedom because you're stuck in a job you hate to pay a mortgage that you can't afford. How could that be positive? How could that be feeding your true self in a loving way when it's causing you pain? Do you see what I'm saying? So we're living in this contradiction, and when your life is a contradiction, something's wrong.
Yeah, and sooner rather than later, something's gonna have to give, right, at some point, right?
Something's going to have to give, correct? Because it's the elastic band will eventually break.
Yeah, because we can only take so much. Mary, as we kind of wind down here, there are three groups of people I believe that are listening to us right now. There's a person who may be on the path of self-inquiry, self-discovery. Things are going well. They're not even too sure, who they are yet, and so it's kind of don't rock the boat, right? There's someone who may have just entered into that pain, that level of pain, and it's causing that conflict. There is a tendency for them to go back, or there's a tendency for them to move beyond that pain to truly getting on to discovering their true self. And there's that last person who may have gotten over that pain, living the life, living the dream, just like you did, right? When you went through that epiphany moment. If you were to speak briefly to these three groups of people, the first group, kind of self-discovery, not sure yet. The second person in the pain, feel like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? Do I go back or do I keep pressing on? And the one who's just gotten over that pain and then using some of those lessons to truly, truly define who they are, right, in terms of their purpose. Briefly, how do you address these three people? What would you say to each one of these people right now, if you were to kind of speak to them?
Well, let me just say what everyone, all of these people would understand, just generally speaking. if we want to attract the law of attraction in our life to work for us, that system, that law of nature that currently exists, if we want to understand how to make that work for us, we need to go through a process of understanding who we are as our absolute priority. Because whenever there's pain in our life, in situations, events, and experiences, something is wrong at an emotional level, which resides at the soul level. And so it should be our priority to become our true self, to get to the core of these emotions and feelings that are not serving us. And by the way, most of our emotions and feelings that aren't serving us already happened and were locked in between the ages of 0 to 7, which was our individuation stage of our life. Even though we may say everything was great and our child was happy, between 0 to 7, if we've got any pain or limitation in our life as adults, something has happened between 0 to 7 to lock us into a fear-based, unloving paradigm that keeps reoccurring in our life. So our priority is to unpack that. It's to alleviate that. It's to let that go. It's to transcend that pain in the form of emotions and feelings that shows up as situation, events, experiences, people, and places, so that the law of attraction can actually work for us, not against us. And isn't it ironic that people think that the law of attraction is affirmations and things of that nature, which is complete shenanigans and keeping people stuck in a place of going nowhere, when in actual fact, all the law of attraction is a feedback loop. It's your environment is showing you that something's wrong. So unless we have the desire and the will to be self-inquirers and have, and to self-realize when the law of attraction is showing up in our life, good or bad, then we ain't going anywhere. We're not going to change anything in our life. And we're just going to keep getting deeper and deeper in pain and blaming the outside world, which is what most people do. But instead of blaming the outside world, you can't blame the outside world. And the reason we can't blame the outside world, parents, institutions, media, government, whatever, is because none of those people or none of those entities know how I feel. None of them. And that's what I need to resolve. That's my advice.
What a powerful advisor. Mary, I wanted you to talk about the work that you do, your business. How do people find out about you? And if someone would want to reach out and learn more, maybe they need help with their business or maybe their personal branding. Can you share a little bit about that? Just I know we didn't touch quite on that because this was
Sure.
very interesting from the very beginning, but I want to give you the chance to talk a little bit about your business. And
Fred, I work with really ambitious, self-led, heart-centered people who have accumulated thousands and thousands of hours in their area of specialization, all sorts of backgrounds. I've got clients, from all over the world, PhDs, certifications, unlike you've never seen before, and some who have just got a lot of wisdom. And so where my genius is that I organize information very well with ease and grace. That's the gift that God gave me. So you can come to me and say, these are all my experiences. These are my passions. This is all of the stuff that I've done in the last 30 years. I have no idea how to organize this information and turn it into a solution that can solve a complex problem. And that's what I do very, very well. And so and I call that your signature solution, your signature program, whatever it may be. And so I work with people to understand, how can we convert that wisdom and that knowledge into a premium solution that can genuinely help solve a problem for a person or a business, either one of those two. And we always start off by defining the brand, but really what I'm doing is actually I'm defining their true self. That's really what I do. And we just call it a brand because everyone calls it a brand, but really in my version of branding, it's really about making sure that your true self shines unapologetically as a brand. And so we build that foundation. We've even built software around that so we get accurate information. I want to work with you. I don't want to work with who you want to be. I want to work with you. That's all I want. I just want your inventory. And then we systemize that. We convert that into a system so that there's a beginning, there's an end, it's outcome driven, it's results driven, because my clients typically are charging 10, 20, 100, $500,000 for their solution, depending, on what industry that they're in. And then we build digital assets around that. And by that, I mean, we're creating a digital environment, whether it's a website, a learning management system, all of their lead magnets, all of the things that need to support that business and provide ecstatic brand experiences for their prospects and their clients. And then we do a layered lead generation strategy across lots and lots of different platforms, all organic, to position these people as brands, and also so they can, and most importantly, position themselves in authority. And then once all of that is launched, then we go into the embodiment work. Now you've got to become that. You have to fully self-actualize that version of you, live, breathe, and eat it every single day. And we need to overcome some barriers to be able to do that, because all of us have got blocks and all of us have been living a false facade. And for me, it's about stripping that back and saying, no, you're not that. This is who you are. And it's very, very powerful to merge what I would call the masculine system, which is the doing, and the feminine system, which is the being. When you merge those two together, it's potent. And that's what I do.
And what's that website again, Mary, for our audience listeners?
My website is maryhendersoncoaching.com.
Mary, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing such valuable nuggets with us. Because, gosh, there's so many takeaways here. Becoming the true self, developing that personal brand, that self-inquiry, that self-actualization, the pain even as part of that journey, right? It's just all great information here. I have certainly gotten a lot, and I trust that our listeners have gotten a lot out of it too. And I wanted to say again, thank you for coming on and sharing this, and hopefully you'd be willing to come back again in a future conversation. Yes. We can take this from, so there's so much that we could touch, or we could go on this conversation, but certainly really I appreciate you here. And to you, our listeners, we couldn't really do this without you. We trust that you've gotten something valuable out of this. And until next time, when we come your way with another edition of the Time with Fred podcast, I want to say thank you and stay well.